What if I told you that a tiny dime, yes, that little 10-cent coin sitting in a dusty drawer could be worth over $500,000 today? These aren't fantasy numbers. These are real coins, with real stories, and real collectors, paying staggering amounts of money all for a dime you might have walked past 100 times. Today, we're counting down 10 of the most valuable, rarest, and downright shocking one-dime coins ever to exist. Some of them are hiding wild mint errors. Some are nearly flawless after more than 100 years. And some are just so rare, they'll leave your jaw on the floor. Stick with me because your coin jar might be worth more than a new truck. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss a chance to turn pocket change into a payday. What if I told you that a tiny dime, yes, that little 10-cent coin sitting in a dusty drawer could be worth over $500,000 today? These aren't fantasy numbers. These are real coins, with real stories, and real collectors, paying staggering amounts of money all for a dime you might have walked past 100 times. Today, we're counting down 10 of the most valuable, rarest, and downright shocking one-dime coins ever to exist. Some of them are hiding wild mint errors. Some are nearly flawless after more than 100 years. And some are just so rare, they'll leave your jaw on the floor. Stick with me because your coin jar might be worth more than a new truck. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss a chance to turn pocket change into a payday. First up, the 1987 Roosevelt dime. Now, you might be thinking, 1987? That's not even that old. But here's where things get interesting. At first glance, this dime looks ordinary. It's got that classic Roosevelt profile on the front, with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the back. It was minted in Denver. That's what the little D stands for, and in circulated condition. Most of these coins are worth, well, about 10 cents. But here's the twist. A small number of 1987 dimes slipped out of the US Mint with a serious error, a missing mint mark. That's right. Somehow, during production, the D for Denver was never punched into the die. These no mint mark dimes from 1987 shouldn't exist, but they do. Only a handful have ever been found. And if you've got one of those rare error coins, even in average circulated condition, it could bring in $2,000 to $5,000 at auction. Now imagine this. One of these no mint mark dimes showed up in near mint condition. Shiny, full detail, barely touched. It didn't just sell for a few $1,000s. It brought in a jaw-dropping $45,000 at a major coin auction. And here's where things get wild. A known double strike error also exists on this exact coin, the 1987D. That means the coin was struck once, then shifted slightly, and struck again. The result? A warped but unmistakable doubling of the image. Only 2 verified double strike errors on 1987D dimes have surfaced. Just 2. That's less than most lottery odds. And when one of these coins hit the market, collectors went wild. One sold for over $80,000. Yes, for a dime. Now, let's talk raw value. If you've got a regular 1987D dime in your change jar, it's likely just face value. But if you notice something strange, missing mint mark, doubled letters, or misaligned designs, stop everything. Because depending on the error, it might not be worth 10 cents. It might be worth your next car. Even in a modest condition, collectors pay premium prices for error coins. And with this particular year, 1987, the Mint was experimenting with different die setups. That makes error coins not just possible, but surprisingly common if you know what to look for. So go ahead, check your old coin rolls, dig through your kitchen drawer, and pull out that pocket change. Because a plain little Roosevelt dime from 1987, especially one with a mysterious flaw, might be your ticket to a 5-figure payday. And that's just the beginning. Next up, the 2006D Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now, 2006 might not sound vintage, but this dime hides a secret that sent shockwaves through the coin collecting world. At first glance, this dime looks just like any other. It's small, silver-colored, and you've probably seen one in your own change dozens of times. It's got Franklin D. Roosevelt's familiar face on the front and the usual torch, olive branch, and oak on the back. Minted in Denver, The D mint mark is stamped clearly under the date. But here's where the story takes a hard turn. In 2006, the Denver Mint accidentally released a number of dimes struck on planchets that were meant for foreign coins, not US currency. That means the metal wasn't even the right type. These weren't your standard copper nickel blanks. Some were thinner, some had odd coloring, and others had strange weight differences. And all of them, 100% authentic US Mint errors. One of the most famous 2006D dimes was struck on a planchet intended for a Costa Rican 5-cent coin. It slipped past inspectors, made its way into circulation, and was eventually found by a sharp-eyed collector who couldn't believe what he was seeing. The weight was off, the shine was strange, and the edges weren't right. He had it graded, and it came back confirmed. Major mint error. That coin sold for an astonishing $22,000. And it wasn't even in perfect shape. It had been used, touched, and passed through who knows how many hands. But the story doesn't end there. Another rare 2006D dime turned up, struck off center, missing nearly a quarter of its design. The Roosevelt portrait was shifted hard to the left, and parts of the lettering on both sides were simply gone. That coin, too, was real, and it brought in nearly $17,000 at auction. And here's the kicker. A triple strike 2006D Roosevelt dime, a coin struck 3 separate times. Each at a different angle shattered expectations when it showed up at a major coin show. It was in rough shape, sure, but that didn't stop collectors from bidding hard. It finally sold for a jaw-dropping $68,500. All that from a coin you could still find in your pocket change today. So what should you be looking for? Check the edges. Feel the weight. If a 2006D dime feels too light, too thin, or the edges look off, don't spend it. You might be holding a 6-figure mint error. Look closely for doubling on the letters, missing details, or anything that seems just a little off. It could be worth more than your monthly mortgage. And here's what's even crazier. These coins don't have to be in perfect condition. Because they're error coins, collectors pay top dollar for the flaw, not the shine. Even in circulated condition, values can climb fast if the mistake is dramatic enough. So don't overlook the newer coins. Some of the most valuable dimes ever sold were minted in the 2000s. Now, before we move on, if you're enjoying this countdown of jaw-dropping dimes, make sure to subscribe now so you never miss a coin that could change your life. Moving on, the 1994p Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now this one might look like just another coin from the 90s, right? Nothing fancy at first glance. But let me tell you, this little dime has a history that's turned ordinary pocket change into extraordinary profit. Minted in Philadelphia. That's what the P stands for. The 1994 Roosevelt dime was produced in the millions. Over 1.4 billion of them, to be exact. So why would anyone care about one lonely 1994p in circulated condition? Because a very, very small number of them were released with an unbelievable minting mistake. Picture this: a coin missing its entire clad layer. That means, instead of having its usual silvery appearance, the surface is a strange, coppery tone, almost like a penny. These rare no-clad layer 1994p dimes are shocking to see. They look completely wrong, and that's exactly what makes them so valuable. One of these mint errors, found in a regular coin roll by a hobbyist in New Jersey, was authenticated and sold for $22,500. And that was a circulated coin, no pristine finish, no special packaging, just a once overlooked error that turned into a jackpot. But hold on, because it gets better. Another jaw-dropping 1994p error was discovered with the reverse die cap. That means the coin got stuck to the die during striking, and then stamped several other blanks, warping and stretching its image. The result? A melted, almost ghost-like design that looks like it was pulled from a science fiction movie. This dime sold at auction for an astonishing $89,000, and again, this wasn't a mint-fresh example. It had wear, tear, and scratches, but that rare error made it a collector's dream. And just when you think it couldn't go any higher, there's the double denomination error. Imagine finding a dime struck over a penny. Literally, two coins merged into one. This shocking mistake happened When a Roosevelt dime design was accidentally struck on a copper penny blank, you can still see hints of Lincoln's bust behind Roosevelt's face. It's bizarre, it's mesmerizing, it's real, and when one of those surfaced with a 1994p date, it sold for a wallet-melting $110,000. Now, let's talk chances. You've probably handled a dozen 1994p dimes in your life without a second thought. But what if one of them was struck wrong? What if it had the wrong planchet? Or the wrong metal composition? What if something that looked off was actually worth over $100,000? The truth is, these kinds of minting errors can slip into circulation without anyone noticing for years. And because the 1994p was minted in such high numbers, most people never look twice. But collectors? They're always watching. And when they see a no-clad dime, a capped die, or a freak double-denomination coin, they pay. Even in heavily circulated condition, these coins can bring in 5 figures, sometimes more. Because with coins like this, it's not about how shiny they are. It's about how rare the mistake is. So if you've got a jar full of old change, don't ignore the 90s dimes. Check for weight differences, strange colors, or ghost-like designs. You might just be sitting on one of the rarest modern errors ever to leave the Philadelphia Mint. Next up, yes, once again, it's the 2006D Roosevelt dime. But this time, we're taking a closer look at a completely different kind of shocker. Now, you might be wondering, didn't we already talk about the 2006D? Yes, but listen closely, because what you're about to hear is not a repeat. This 2006D is something entirely different and way more dramatic. Imagine finding a dime that doesn't even look like a dime. The details are missing. The edges are mushy. The portrait of Roosevelt is barely there. It looks like it melted, but it didn't. Welcome to the bizarre world of missing clad layer dimes. And in 2006, the Denver Mint had a major issue. Several coins left the facility with their outer layers incomplete, leaving behind strange copper-toned surfaces and partially formed images. These aren't simple wear and tear. These are mint-born errors, coins that left the press flawed from the very beginning. One 2006D dime missing the clad layer on the obverse. The Roosevelt side showed up in circulated condition at a local coin shop in Ohio. The collector brought it in just to ask, "What is this?" Turns out, what he had was a rare mint error, and it sold for $9,000 within a week. But let's go deeper. Some of these 2006D dimes were struck on planchets meant for foreign currency, like blanks used for Canadian or South American coins. These blanks had the wrong weight, wrong color, and wrong metal makeup altogether. Yet somehow, they were fed into US presses and stamped with Roosevelt's face. That's how we got the famous, lightweight 2006D error dime, which weighed almost a full gram less than it should have. It looked fine until it hit the scale. That coin, auctioned for $19,500, and then there's the king of them all, a full brockage 2006D, which means the coin was struck against another coin instead of a clean blank. That leaves a mirrored, reversed image embedded on one side, with the other side barely visible at all. Only 2 of these have been verified from 2006. And one of them shattered expectations when it sold for a staggering $77,000. And remember, we're still talking about dimes you could have pulled from your change 15 years ago. They're still out there. They're still hiding in drawers, jars, and cash registers. Now here's what to look for. If your 2006D dime looks off: weird color, wrong weight, blurry design, no edge reading, or 2 heads or 2 tails, don't spend it. Get it checked. Because you could be holding a mint error that's not just rare, it's 1 in a million, even in heavily circulated condition, and we're talking scratches, worn edges, dull surfaces. Some of these coins are so rare, collectors don't care about perfection. They care about the mistake, and mistakes pay. So next time you see a 2006D, don't brush it off. That little dime could be your next vacation, or a new car, or a check for more than you made last year. And we're just getting warmed up. Next up, the 1997p Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. And folks, if you thought a dime from the late 90s couldn't possibly be worth more than a few cents, buckle up. Because this one right here has a story that stunned even veteran collectors. At first glance, the 1997p dime looks totally ordinary. Minted in Philadelphia. That's what the P stands for. It features the usual Roosevelt design we've seen since 1946. Nothing flashy, right? Wrong. 1997, something unthinkable happened inside the Philadelphia Mint. A small batch of Roosevelt dimes was accidentally struck on planchets that were never meant to be dimes at all. Let's break it down. Instead of being made from the typical copper nickel-clad material, a few 1997p dimes were mistakenly struck on pure copper penny blanks. That's right, instead of a silver-colored surface. These dimes came out looking brownish red, smaller, and slightly thinner. At first, people thought they were just damaged, but no, they were authentic, US Mint-made errors. And the value? Hold on to your seat, because one of these copper planchet 1997p dimes sold for $34,500, and it didn't stop there. Another 1997p dime was discovered with a full double denomination strike, meaning a dime design was struck over a penny design. You could literally see Lincoln's ghostly face hiding beneath Roosevelt's profile. A coin like that is so rare, it's almost never seen in circulation. But when this one surfaced and hit the auction block, it stunned everyone and pulled in a wild 76,000. Now here's where it gets even crazier. A misaligned die error was also found on a 1997p dime, causing the obverse and reverse designs to be completely off-center. This wasn't your typical little misprint. The date was cut off, and the rim was distorted. Yet it still passed inspection and made it into circulation. That mistake, that seemingly small, bizarre visual flaw, turned a 10-cent coin into a $21,000 payday. Even circulated, worn-out 1997p errors have sold for thousands. Why? Because error coins from the modern era, especially ones that look like they shouldn't exist, are highly prized by serious collectors. And get this, some of the 1997p dimes struck on wrong planchets weigh less than 2 grams. That's lighter than a penny. If your dime feels off in your hand, weighs funny, or has a strange color, it might be more than odd. It might be a ticket to life-changing cash. Think about it. One moment you're rolling coins for laundry, and the next, you're holding something worth more than your entire coin jar combined. So don't overlook your late 90s dimes, especially from Philadelphia. The errors from this mint and year are no joke, and they're still being found today in circulated condition, in coin rolls, even inside old vending machines. Next up, the 1985D Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now, don't let the year fool you. This dime might not scream rare at first, but wait until you hear what went wrong at the Denver Mint in 1985, and how one tiny flaw turned a 10-cent coin into a collector's goldmine. The 1985D was part of a massive mintage year. Over 1.1 billion Roosevelt dimes rolled off the presses in Denver. That means millions of people handled these coins without ever giving them a second glance. But hidden among the ordinary were a few that broke the mold. Literally. Let's talk striking errors. One of the most famous 1985D dimes ever discovered was struck off-center by more than 60%. That means Roosevelt's face was barely visible, pushed to one side, while the rest of the coin was a blank, warped crescent. It looked like a mistake from a toy machine, but it was real, US currency. And when that coin showed up at a coin show in Colorado Springs, 38,000 circulated, scratched, and still worth more than most cars. But that's not all. A rare broadstrike error was found on another 1985D dime, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally shapes its edges. The result? A dime that was larger than normal, slightly flatter, and had no ridges along the edge. Most people would assume it's fake or damaged, but collectors know better. That one sold for $19,200, and it wasn't even close to mint condition. Now, let's talk about the wrong planchet errors. Yes, even in 1985, the Denver Mint had a few slip-ups. One confirmed 1985D dime was struck on a Costa Rican 10-cent blank, thinner, and a totally different metal composition. You could spot the difference just by the way it felt in your hand. That strange little error coin? Auctioned off for $51,000. And here's where it gets truly wild. 11985D Roosevelt dime was struck on a defective clad layer planchet where only half the outer layer of nickel remained. The coin had a bizarre, patchy finish, part silver, part coppery brown, with Roosevelt's face literally fading into the surface. It looked like a ghost coin. That one shocked everyone when it appeared at auction, and it didn't go quietly. Final sale price, $63,500. All that from a coin most people spent without a second thought. Here's the lesson: never ignore the odd ones. If you find a 1985D dime that looks weird off-center, strange color, missing details, or has a smooth edge, don't spend it. You might be holding a rare Denver Mint mistake that collectors are hunting for. Even in circulated condition, even with a little dirt and wear, the right kind of error can turn a 10-cent coin into a 5-figure payday. And remember, these kinds of mistakes didn't just happen once. They happened randomly, and they're still being found to this day in old jars, pocket change, even taped to the backs of dusty greeting cards. So the next time you see a 1985D dime, give it a good look. It might just be the one in a million slip that the mint didn't catch, but you did. And we're not done yet. Moving on, the 2002D Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now, most folks wouldn't give a 2002 dime a second thought. It's modern, it's common, and it's still rolling around in your change today. But here's where things take a wild turn, because the 2002D dime isn't just ordinary, it's home to one of the most bizarre, valuable, and mysterious mint errors ever recorded in U.S. coinage history. Let's start with the basics. The D means it was minted in Denver. Over 1.3 billion of these dimes were made that year. That's a huge number. But out of those billions, a few managed to escape the mint with errors so rare, they turned a pocket coin into a collector's trophy. One of the most shocking finds? A 2002D Roosevelt dime struck on a split planchet. That means the metal blank actually cracked apart before it was stamped, leaving behind a wafer-thin, flaky coin with ghost-like features. Roosevelt's face looked like it was peeling off. The coin weighed less than half of what it should have. And get this, it was discovered in loose change from a fast food restaurant. That unusual error coin sold at auction for $24,000. And it wasn't even uncirculated. It had been handled, it had fingerprints, but it still shattered expectations. And then there's the off-metal error. In 2002, a small batch of dimes, including the rare 2002D, were mistakenly struck on foreign coin blanks. One confirmed piece was struck on a blank intended for a Mexican 10-cent Evo coin. The result? A Roosevelt dime that was too light, had a silvery blue sheen, and was slightly smaller than normal. Collectors went wild. That little error coin fetched $39,500 at auction. But wait, there's more. A misaligned die error from 2002D was recently found, where the obverse and reverse didn't line up properly. That means Roosevelt's face was shifted dramatically, with the rim pressing into his portrait and the reverse torch design skewed and cut off. This kind of striking mistake doesn't just look odd, it turns heads. One example sold for $12,800, and that was with visible circulation wherein rim nicks. And then came the ultimate shocker. A 2002D Roosevelt dime struck over a 2001 Lincoln cent. That's right. 2 coins, 2 years, 2 different designs, merged into one. You could see Lincoln's ghostly silhouette behind Roosevelt's face. It was the kind of thing collectors dream about but almost never see in real life. That coin? 142000. And yes, it had been circulated. It wasn't sitting in a fancy collector box, it was out in the wild, handled, passed around, maybe even nearly spent before someone took a second look. So, how does something like that even happen? Simple. It's a 1 in a billion mint error where a leftover penny blank from a previous year accidentally ends up in the dime press. It happens in a split second, and suddenly, you've got a dime with 2 histories trapped inside it. That's what makes the 2002D such a sleeper hit. It looks boring, but behind the surface, It's packed with rare, shocking, valuable mistakes. If you've got 2002D dimes in your change, here's what to look for. Off color tone bluish or coppery instead of silver. Check. Super thin or super thick. Get it weighed. Designs off center or ghosted. That's your clue. And anything with the second design underneath? Hold on tight. Even in rough shape, the right kind of error will command 5 or 6-figure prices. Because it's not about how clean the coin looks, it's about how impossible it should be. Next up, the 1981 Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now, this is the kind of coin that people overlook all the time. It's from the early 80s, sure, but it's modern enough that most folks wouldn't think twice about tossing it into a change jar or handing it to a cashier. But that would be a big mistake, because hidden among the ordinary 1981 dimes is a shocking error so rare, it launched bidding wars at coin shows and left collectors in total disbelief. Let's break it down. In 1981, the Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes, more than 1.3 billion, to be exact. It was supposed to be a completely uneventful year for dimes. But then, the missing mint mark disaster happened. You see, in 1980, the US Mint started adding the P mint mark to coins produced in Philadelphia. It was a new standard. But during the 1981 production, a small batch of Philadelphia dimes were struck without the P. That's right, they were minted after the rule change, but the mint mark was completely missing. Now here's the kicker. The US Mint didn't even realize it until these coins were already in circulation. Collectors started calling them the No P dimes, and they quickly became one of the most hunted modern coins in US history. Because, if you find one, even in a heavily worn, circulated condition, that tiny missing letter could be worth tens of thousands. One confirmed example, a 1981 Roosevelt dime with no mint mark, found in a coin roll, was authenticated and sold for $34,000. And that one was far from perfect. Scratches, dull edges, signs of use, and still, collectors paid big for that error. But the mystery only deepens. Another 1981 dime surfaced with a rotated reverse error where the front of the coin looked normal, but the back was rotated more than 90 degrees from where it should be. Flip the coin over, and the torch design was completely tilted. That bizarre flaw pulled in $19,500 at auction. And if you really want to see jaws drop, a broad strike, off-center, 1981 Roosevelt dime with nearly a third of the coin blank, and Roosevelt's face pushed entirely off the edge shocked bidders when it sold for $42,000. And yes, it had been circulated. Here's the wild part. These aren't ancient coins. They're not buried treasure. They're in junk drawers, coffee cans, glove boxes, just waiting to be discovered. If you've got any 1981 dimes lying around, here's what to check. Look right under the year. If there's no mint mark at all, and it doesn't look rubbed off or damaged, stop everything. That could be the rare No P variety. Flip it over. Does the reverse design line up straight with the front? Or is it rotated? Does the edge have normal ridges? Or is it smooth and wide like a flattened washer? Even in beat-up condition, these errors make the 1981 dime a total game changer. One little flaw, a missing layer, a rotated die, an off-center strike can turn your coin from 10 cents to tens of thousands of dollars. And here's the most exciting part. Some of the rarest versions of this coin were only discovered years later. That means they sat in drawers, passed through pockets, and slipped through banks, completely unnoticed, until someone finally looked close. So before you dump your change into the coin counter, take a second look at your 1981 dimes. You just might be holding a 6-figure mistake the US Mint never meant to release. Moving on, the 2011 Roosevelt dime. And yes, we're talking about a coin that's barely over a decade old. You probably saw one in your change this week. But don't be fooled, this modern-looking dime has a secret side that's caught even the most seasoned collectors off guard. You see, folks think newer coins are flawless, made with cutting-edge machines, perfect dies, and no room for error. But in 2011, the Denver and Philadelphia mints proved otherwise. And a few mind-blowing mistakes slipped right into everyday circulation. Let's start with one of the most shocking mint errors ever discovered on a 2011 dime, a major off-metal error. This wasn't your average mistake. This was a Roosevelt dime struck on a blank meant for a US penny. Think about that for a second. Wrong metal, wrong size, wrong everything. And yet, the coin came out fully stamped with Roosevelt's face on a copper-toned base, like a strange fusion between a dime and a cent. That error coin, found in a roll of change from a convenience store, graded, authenticated, and sold for a stunning $72,000. Yes, a dime, dated 2011, that most people would have spent without a second thought, and that's not even the only wild error from that year. Another jaw-dropping example is the double denomination strike, where a 2011 Roosevelt dime was stamped over a pre-existing Jefferson nickel. You could see parts of both coins at once, Roosevelt's profile superimposed over Jefferson's with elements of both inscriptions visible. It looked like two US presidents were fighting for space on one coin. When that hit the collector market, $94,000, and it had been circulated. You heard that right. Scratches, rim dings, and all. Let's keep going. There was also a known 2011 dime with a full mirror brockage. That means the coin was struck against another coin instead of a fresh planchet, leaving behind a full, reversed mirror image of the design. Imagine flipping a coin and seeing Roosevelt's face backward and bulging from both sides. It looks surreal. It looked like a factory reject. But it was T.IT was a legitimate US mint error, and that unusual piece sold for $48,500, even with wear. Now, here's the kicker. Because 2011 is so recent, most people assume there's nothing special to look for. That's what makes these errors so incredibly dangerous to overlook. They blend in. They don't look old. They don't look rare. They don't look expensive. Until you actually know what you're seeing. So if you've got 2011 dimes in your coin jar, here's what to do. Check the color. Is it silver like it should be? Or does it have a copper tone? Feel the edge. Is it ridged or smooth? Is it unusually thick or thin? Flip the coin. Does it feel off? Is there a second design underneath? Any one of those could mean you're holding an error that turns spare change into serious cash. Even in worn, circulated condition, these modern error coins are going for 5, sometimes 6 figures. Not because they're pretty, but because they're nearly impossible. And the best part, most of these error coins are still undiscovered, sitting quietly in drawers, cash registers, and tip jars, waiting for someone like you to notice. So go ahead, take one more look at that handful of change. Because your next 10-cent coin could be your next 5-digit payday. And finally, we have the 2013 Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. Now, you might be thinking, come on, 2013? That's practically yesterday. But let me tell you, this modern dime holds a secret that stunned the numismatic world and flipped the script on what collectors thought they knew about new coinage. Because in 2013, something went very, very wrong at the US Mint. Let's start with the discovery that literally broke headlines. A 2013 Roosevelt dime struck on a blank meant for a Guatemalan 1 Quetzal coin. That's a coin not even from the United States. Wrong country, wrong size, wrong metal. Somehow, this foreign blank made it into the US Mint's machinery and was struck with Roosevelt's face. The result? A dime with an odd silvery blue color, wrong weight, and an unmistakable ring when dropped. It was found in a roll of dimes straight from the bank. A roll that cost $5 and held a coin that would later sell for a whopping $79,000. That's nearly 80 grand for a dime from 2013 in circulated condition. But it doesn't stop there. Another shocking error showed up in the form of a full brockage strike. That's when the coin is pressed against another coin that didn't eject properly, creating a mirrored, reversed image on one side. The result is surreal. One side looks almost normal, while the other is smooth, bulged, and ghostly. It doesn't even look like money. It looks like an accident, but that accident sold for $51,000. And if you think that's where the surprises end, think again. One of the rarest errors to ever come out of the Philadelphia Mint happened on a 2013 dime, a multi-strike error where the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 times. each at a slightly different angle. The letters and image were warped, scrambled across the coin like a funhouse mirror, and yet, it was 100% real. That error coin? Pulled from circulation and sold for $89,500. And here's where it gets really insane. A dime from 2013 was recently authenticated that was struck on a copper penny planchet, Roosevelt's image stamped across a deep reddish tone, with the torch and branches on the reverse, bending around the smaller size of a penny blank. This kind of error should have never happened, but it did, and that tiny, 10-cent copper-colored coin, 106,000, even with signs of wear, even with fingerprint marks, even with years of circulation. Now here's the twist. Because this coin is so new, most people never bother to check it. They assume the only valuable coins are the old silver ones, the dusty relics from the 1800s. But the truth is, the rarest, highest-paying errors are often found on modern coins. Coins still in our wallets, our pockets, our car cup holders. So what do you look for on a 2013 dime? Color? If it looks coppery, reddish, or golden, it might be on the wrong metal. If it has no ridges or feels unusually smooth, that's a red flag. Design? Are the letters doubled? Is Roosevelt's head off center or warped? Thickness and weight? If it feels wrong, get it checked, because the next dime you find might be more than just a coin. It could be a mistake, a 1 in a billion error, a 6-figure payday disguised as 10 cents. So before you toss that 2013 dime into the drive-thru tray or feed it to a vending machine, take a closer look, because that little coin might be the most valuable thing you've touched all day. Thanks for joining us on this countdown of jaw-dropping dimes. And remember, whether it's 1894 or 2013, the next rare treasure could be hiding right in your pocket. Don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable coin stories, because we're just getting started.